News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm John Tucker.
And I'm Karen Moscow.
And Karen, let's start with the latest on the war in Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelenskiy says he plans to meet with President Trump in the coming days, signaling some degree of optimism about reaching a peace deal to end Russia's almost 4-year war. In a post on X, Zelenskiy writes, quote, "A lot could be decided before the new year." The Kyiv Post reported earlier that Zelenskiy is expected to travel to Florida, where President Trump is spending the Christmas break, as soon as Sunday. Kyiv and Washington are seeking to align on a 20-point peace plan to present to Russian President Vladimir Putin, including the provision of strong security guarantees modeled on NATO's Article 5 and a global post-war development program for Ukraine.
Staying with geopolitics here, John, the U.S. launched a military strike in Nigeria against Islamic State targets in a security and intelligence collaboration with the African nation's government, which has been struggling to contain increasing levels of terrorist attacks in parts of the country. And President Trump said he directed American forces to carry out a powerful and deadly strike against ISIS. Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Ministry confirmed the precision hits on terrorist targets and said it remains engaged with international partners, including the U.S., to address the persistent threat of terrorism and violent extremism.
And a sanctioned oil tanker pursued by U.S. forces turned away from Venezuela and retreated out into the Atlantic Ocean as the Trump administration continues a blockade, piling pressure on Caracas. Sources are telling Bloomberg that the Coast Guard encountered the ship Bella 1 amid bad weather near Barbados on Sunday and then instructed the tanker to move to calmer waters for safe boarding. Well, the ship instead sailed toward the Atlantic Ocean. The tanker was not hauling oil at the time it turned away from Venezuela.
Meanwhile, John, China criticized the U.S. for what it said was trying to hurt Beijing's ties with India, calling its approach irresponsible. Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian said a recent report by the Pentagon distorts China's defense policy, sows discord between China and other countries, and aims to find a pretext for the U.S. to perpetuate its own military hegemony. Lin made the remarks when asked about the report, which said China may use an easing of tensions with India to block improved ties between Washington and New Delhi. Let's turn to company news now, John. Nvidia has agreed to a licensing deal with artificial intelligence startup Groq, furthering its investments in companies connected to the AI boom and gaining the right to add a new type of technology to its products. The world's largest publicly traded company has paid for the right to use Groq's technology and will integrate its chip design into future products. Some of the startup's executives are leaving to join Nvidia to help with that effort, the company said, and Groq will continue as an independent company with a new chief executive.
And Goldman Sachs warning clients about an outside law firm data breach. Let's get more of that story from Bloomberg's Erica Herskowitz.
The banking giant says the data of some investors may have been exposed in a breach at one of the bank's law firms. Goldman was informed of the cybersecurity incident by Fried, Frank, Harris, Shriver, and Jacobson, which serves as outside counsel to many of its alternative funds. The law firm says its network is now secure, the vulnerability has been corrected, and any exposed data is unlikely to be used improperly. Goldman says its own systems were not impacted by the breach. Erica Herskowitz, Bloomberg Radio.
Right, Erica, thank you. Hundreds of flights have been canceled at New York's major airports as a winter storm descends on the city and neighboring regions. At least 400 international and domestic flights have been canceled and many delayed. This is according to FlightAware, which is an airline tracking service. New York's LaGuardia and John F. Kennedy airports, as well as nearby Newark, were among the hardest hit. And we get details with Bloomberg meteorologist Craig Allen.
It looks like the heaviest snowfall is going to come on down through central New York State, cut across Interstate I-81 and across 87, come down to about I-80, which runs through the northeast section of Pennsylvania and northern New Jersey and over towards New York City. Even New Jersey, right along the coast and portions of Long Island, could wind up with more than half a foot of snow.
Time now for a Bloomberg Sports Update. Here's Dan Schwartzman.
3 NFL games on the Christmas schedules. The Lions are officially eliminated from playoff contention, falling to the Vikings 23-10. Broncos stay in contention to win the AFC West with a 20-13 win over the Chiefs, while the Cowboys knock off the Commanders 30-23. NBA with 5 marquee matchups on Christmas. The Thunder lose just their 5th game of the season, falling to the Spurs 117-102. Knicks a comeback win over the Cavs 126-124. The Rockets dominate the Lakers 117-96. 186. Warriors knock off the Mavericks 126-116, while the Nuggets get a monster triple-double from Nikola Jokic, 56 points, 16 rebounds, and 15 assists in a 142-138 overtime win over the Timberwolves. That's your Bloomberg Sports Update.
And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moscow.
I'm John Tucker, and this is Bloomberg.